Good afternoon and welcome to Thirsty Thursday. I'm Claire Manning, the artist and designer behind Thirsty Brush, and today I'm going to be showing you a few techniques that you can use at home with your Thirsty Brush products and showing you some of those as well. Thank you very much for joining me here in the Stamps by Me studio, and it's great to have met a few of you at Port Sunlight and other shows recently. So while I get ready for our first demo, check out this crafty video. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. That was some recaps from last week's demos. So just before we start, a couple of quick announcements from me. Obviously we're streaming live here from the studio today, but if you can't watch live the whole show, you can get it on catch up either via YouTube, or we'll be sharing some links to the show on Facebook and other social media as well, and there'll be some quick highlights as well if you haven't got time to watch a full show. So a couple of other things. We have some workshops starting in my Thirsty Brush studio on Monday. So we officially open for business on Monday, the 14th of October. And the first workshop, which is a kind of social brushettes group, which is named after our Facebook group. Although you don't have to be a member, we're hoping that by the time you leave, you will want to be a member of that lovely Facebook community. So it's 2 till 4. And if you go on to Facebook, any of the social medias that we've got, and also my blog, which I'll come back to, you'll be able to get a link to book in your ticket, although this first session is completely free of charge. So if you're local to Birmingham, or you can travel for a nice Monday afternoon and a cup of tea, then I'd absolutely love to see you. Onto the blog. So we relaunched our blog on a Tuesday last week, and our second instalment was yesterday. So do check it out. If you go to thirstybrush.co.uk, and at the top there's a menu and there's a blog section there, you'll see not only last week's and this week's instalment, but there are also some older ones on there as well. So I think I counted yesterday, there's about 35 blog posts on there with loads of inspiration, with cards from myself and the design team girls going over pretty much our entire back catalogue. And next one is, if anyone's around in Crafting Live, I think it starts next Friday the 18th in Peterborough. We'll be there, me and my husband Dean will be there and have a stand, so we'd love to see you, and I'll be demoing pretty much both days. And I'm doing a live demonstration on the Create and Craft stand as well. So do check that out and pop in and see us. One or two more last things. Do subscribe and share to Tony's Stamps by Me channel. That way you will get not just Tony's content and videos, but you will get Thirsty Brush ones as well. And there's a playlist within that channel that will allow you to just filter out Thirsty Brush if you want. But there's some fantastic videos from both of us on there. So do subscribe and share. And finally, we've got a giveaway today. So as always with mine and Tony's videos, you don't have to have these products to follow these demonstrations. You might have something in your stash that's you can create a similar effect with. However, we're going to give away a stamp set today, and I'll show you throughout the demos which stamp set that is. And if you spot anything you want to buy, then that's great. You can just pop it into either the Thirsty Brush website or the Stamps by Me website. Go to search and put in FBL in capitals, as in Facebook Live, FBL. And all the things that I'm using today, if you do spot something that you haven't got that you want, you'll be able to filter all those out very quickly and see what we're using. Great, so shall we get on with some demonstrations? I'm just gonna grab some stuff to do the first one. We're going to recreate a card today that is on my stand whenever we do craft shows, and it is one of the most talked about cards. It's one of Kerry's designs, and it's absolutely amazing. I really hope I do it justice today and show you the technique that you'll be able to use with stencils, stamps, dies, loads of different things that you've got in your stash. So to start off, what I've got is an 8x8 card blank, but you can use any size card blank, a slightly smaller piece of black card that's going to be my matte and layer. I'll just put those aside for now. And this is the piece I'm going to work on. Again, this is slightly smaller than my black matte layer, and it's just a white piece of good quality 300 GSM card. I'm going to use a stencil with it, and it's going to be the hand painted foliage stencil. So you can see from that piece of card that was a decent size, these are really big stencils, and that's going to give you a full page of this beautiful foliage design, leafy design with even some like berries and stuff in it. So I don't always take down my card and my stencils, but for this reason I'm going to tape it down and keep it there, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. This is the stencil I'm using, so you can see this is a well-loved one. A little bit more tape. And if I was just inking with a bit of these distress inks, then I just probably hold it, to be honest, in place. But the reason I'm going to do this is that I'm going to use some embossing powder, and the embossing ink is very sticky, and I do not want it to move my stencil to be sliding around. I must go back a step actually, because what I didn't do there before taping that down, which is very important for this, is use my anti-static bag. So to use my anti-static bag on this piece of card will stop any powder sticking anywhere else. So plenty on there. Pop that stencil back. So Kerry tells me when she made this card, she personally did the inky background that I'll show you first, and then did the embossing. And I'm going to try it this way. I've tried that too, and that works, so there's no right or wrong here. But I'm going to try it this way, see if I can get the same effect. So what I'm doing here is I'm using Versamark, which is an embossing ink, so it's really sticky, and that's why I really want to tape down this stencil. And I'm using more of a dabbing motion than if you were using distress inks, for example. You might use more of a circular motion. So I'm dabbing away. Really gently to make sure so I get all the nice detail. So you'll find this a lot stickier than when you're using your distress inks or other types of inks to blend, but it will give an amazing effect. So even though it's clear now, when we add a powder, all that detail will come through. Just kind of working my way around so I know exactly where I've done and where I haven't. Just a quick dab all over just to double check. And you could see straight away if I was using this kind of technique or hadn't taped that down, that stencil would be moving all over the place. Let's take that away and add the powder. So you won't see anything now because that ink is clear. But let's add our embossing powder. Oops, this tape is a bit stickier than I anticipated. So I'm going to use just a piece of scrap paper to collect any excess powder. And I'm using a black here, just a glossy black. I think in the original card that Kerry hopefully might share on social media for us was a black glitter paste, but you can use anything you want. The reason that we're using black here is that we're going to do a really bold and colourful inky background, and I really want it to stand out. Last few bits, make it really stick. Lovely. Just pop that back in. Wow, I did that without spilling for the first time ever. So when you tap the back of the card, lots of excess comes off, but if you have got tiny little bits that maybe have come through a stencil, luckily you can't see too many on the screen, but if you have got any bits of powder anywhere that you don't want, like there's a little smudge there from my fingers, then just get a dry brush and get rid of those before you heat set your powder. And you can make sure it's really nice and clean. And your powder is only where you want it on that beautiful design. So have a go with this with any stencils you've got at home, or if you've already got this stencil, I'd love to see you have a go. So let's heat set that now and make it all nice and glossy. So as the powder's changing, not wafting my gun, a bit like last week. I'm just chasing the powder as I see it start to go glossy and shiny. See that bit of gloss there? Let's carry on. I absolutely love using embossing powders, and I think traditionally we would use them with stamps and things like that, but to be able to use it through stencils is a really different way to get this same look. And because of the variety of powders out there, you can get all sorts of different colours and glitters and shimmers, that kind of thing. Slowly changing. Just be careful of your fingers when you get to the edge. If you're holding your piece of paper, just so it doesn't blow away, I'm holding it right here. Maybe you can use some tweezers to mind your fingers, just to hold the edge of the paper. Just holding it to the light just to check I've got absolutely everywhere, because otherwise when I put my ink on, you don't want any of that powder to move around. So that looks set. Just a little note while that's kind of cooling before I put any ink. on your stencil now. So when you're using a lot of ink, you might just wipe that off with a damp cloth or a baby wipe or something like that. With that Versamark embossing ink, that's very, very sticky now, so you're going to need to give it a wash. So just a little bit of lukewarm soapy water, nothing fancy in your sink, will do the job, but just make sure that doesn't get left for too long before you clean that off. Otherwise you don't want it too sticky for next time you use that stencil, and you might be using a different type of technique. So let's go back to our inks. So for this design, in the background of this foliage now, we're going to use some distress inks, and I'll read out the names of the 3 colours I'm using: Squeezed Lemon, Wild Honey and Worn Lipstick, and we're going to use them to create like a kind of ombre sunsetty kind of effect. So let's start off at the top with the yellowy one. Just checking that powder's fully set. Yep. And it's handy to have a little bit of scrap paper on hand, because I'm only using one blending tool for all these colours, which is why I'm going from light to dark rather than the other way around, so they don't infringe each other too much. But you can always clean your sponge off a little bit on this this scrap piece of paper if you want. So I'm going to start in the corner here and using a circular motion. I'm going to start blending that ink in from the edge of the paper or card, and I'm going to fill about 1/3 of the card roughly, maybe a little bit more, with this lovely yellow. Go slightly lower than the 1/3, and then you'll see why in a little while, because when we add the next colour you want them to overlap seamlessly, but make sure it's really pure colour there. Use as much as you need. If it's dulling your leaves a little bit, don't worry, because that's nice shiny embossing powder. Afterwards I'm just going to wipe that all over, and that lovely gloss will come back beautifully. So next colour, says Wild Honey, but it's actually quite a bright orange look, and it's still got those yellow tones. You can see that's the colour we're going for. So let's bring that into the middle of the piece of card. So yeah, just going back to the technique, Kerry said she did inking first and embossing after, and I tried that yesterday as well, but I just thought I fancy trying it the other way round today, see whether you can do it both ways and what the effect looks like. I think it's working quite well. So again, about 1/3 of the card covered, and blending lovely into that yellow. If you still feel there's a bit too much of a line, don't worry, just go in, add a bit more of yellow in until you've got like a seamless blend. And now we're going to go to the bottom 1/3 with this lovely pinky colour, and that's going to blend quite well with the orange. It's looking like a real sunset, isn't it? I have to take that little bit of paper off just where it caught on the tape, but I can cover it with ink. There we go, you never know that was there now. So still that same circular motion, always coming in off the card, because then you won't get any harsh lines or big kind of circle prints. And it just takes a bit of practice when you first use an ink, blending in like a distress ink or distress oxide as these are, because your temptation when you first use this kind of ink is you go straight in like that and work out, and then you end up with those circles. So by going from the outside of the paper, you get a much smoother blend, and that's how you can blend these colours into each other without leaving your circle marks. So if you're having trouble, I hope that helps a little bit. Okay, so just to get rid of any line between the two colours, I'm just going back over with the orange again, maybe just a tiny bit more pink at the bottom. There we are, and that gives a really cool sunset effect, doesn't it? So let's pop the inks away and just clean down a little bit. And then I'm going to wipe over and just really get that gloss coming back on those leaves. Let's see if I've got something dry to wipe it over with. I'll do it very gently with the wipe. Ideally just use some like kitchen roll or something like that and just go over. You don't want to pick up the ink, but if you just go over with a kitchen roll just very, very lightly, it'll take that excess ink off the top. I don't want to do that too much with the baby wipe here because it will bring back some of the ink. Oh, I've got something. Here we go. I found some kind of blue roll here that will do the job perfectly. So yeah, something dry like a kitchen roll or this, and it will just gloss it back up and make that lovely leafy glossy pattern spring back out. Or you can do what Kerry did, which is do the inking in the background first. So one last little bit of extra texture almost to add to this is, because these are oxide inks, I'm going to splash a tiny little bit of water on just to give, just with my fingers, my pot, and that's going to give a bleached out effect by again going back in with the kitchen roll or a little cloth, and it just picks up that real kind of sun bleached look to that sunset colours. Looks really good, doesn't it? Right then, so that's the main focal point of our card. So if I bring back in my card blank and my black, so I'm just going to pop that on, and then all I'm going to do is add a sentiment to that one. Just a quick reminder of the giveaway. You need to comment before 3:30, so you've got a few minutes left to do that. 5 minutes left. So any comment you like on the bottom, tell me what you think of the card, tell me what you've been up to today, anything at all. And I'm going to show you now, once I pop this together, I'm going to show you what we're going to give away, because I'm actually using a sentiment from it for this card now. I'm going to make that a top folding. So just to show you what we're giving away is this lovely chrysanthemum stamp set. So it's an A5 set. You get this lovely chrysanthemum hand-drawn design, a large one and a small one, and you get some amazing sentiments on there, big and small. So you've got "you're so," and then you get 3 different words, big and small, that you can mix and match. So you can have "you're so inspiring," "you're so fantastic," "you're so loved," or of course you can use those words individually, and they'll go with loads and loads of different designs, hopefully, in your stash. So for this card, I'm using the Fantastic, and I'll show you what I've done with that. So what I've done, the dies that you can also get for those chrysanthemum stamps do like a matte and layer for your sentiments. So what I've done is, I'll show you what they look like. So those are your outline dies for the flowers, and then you get a die for the sentiment. So you stamp it out using your stamp set, cut it out with this die, which I've done here in this black with the gold embossing, and then you get a second, like a matte layer that I've done in the white here, so I'm going to layer those up. So when Kerry did this card for our stand, I think she had a hello die set. It was before we did any of these lovely sentiment ones, so now we've got so many different stamp sets that have got these in. It's great, and they go perfectly. I swear my hair's falling out crazy today. Keep finding them. Maybe it's the same hair, keep coming back. So if I layer that on, really easy to position. And then I'm going to pop that onto the card. So quite a simple card, as in that it's got just a background and a sentiment, but I think that background makes such an impact. I don't think it needs anything else. So some tiny little foam pads. And this is absolutely one of the most talked about cards. Honestly, people come to our stand at craft shows and they go, wow, how on earth have you made that? And when they realise that all you need is a stencil and some inks to get that kind of look, they're amazed at how it's been done. Of course, you could layer over some of your flowers if you want. Maybe do your colours in the background, different colours. But there we go. I think that's a really nice, impactful card and something really bold and different. So I'm going to go on to the next demo in a minute, but we're going to do last minute to do on the giveaway for your comment. And so for now, if you just watch this little video, and we'll come back and announce the winner. See you in a moment. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that little video. And so I have an announcement to make about the competition. So the winner is Leslie Durio. So well done, Leslie. You've won this lovely chrysanthemum stamp set. I hope you enjoy it. What you need to do is tell us where to send it. So if you can email in to info@thirstybrush.co.uk and I will get that in the post to you absolutely ASAP, so you can enjoy it. And please share it with us. If you're not on the Facebook group already, please share with us what you make. I'd love to see. Great. So shall we go on to our next demonstration? And we're going Christmas now. So I'm going to do one of the most asked for demonstrations that I get with the lovely, lovely Merry Robin. So I'm going to stamp him out and do some colouring techniques with you, because every time people see cards I've made with this stamp, they ask me how to do this technique. So let's grab a Eureka for some stamping. And this is going to be a 5x7 card. So I'm using a piece of white card just slightly smaller than that. And see, our Merry Robin will fit perfectly on there. So I'm going to position him where I want him. Just maybe, I think I might do him quite centrally actually, because really the point of this demonstration is to show you the colouring technique as well. But of course you can position him wherever you like on your card. I'm going to stamp him in grey ink, which will give him a lovely, more kind of pencil line kind of look. And isn't he cute? Just one little go over. So you still get that lovely kind of hand-drawn look to him then, but he's not so cutesy that he's a cartoon. Little Robin, so that's awesome. Happy with that. So let's go. One of the things that people love about this Robin stamp set as well is that you've got these other sentiments, magic of Christmas, may your days be merry, 'tis the season, but the one that everybody always talks about is this one here, robins appear when loved ones are near, and I think that kind of touches the heart of quite a lot of people. Maybe if you're thinking about somebody at Christmas, we always think of Christmas as a happy time, but some people do genuinely struggle at that time of year, and it can be nice to recognise that and show somebody some support and that you're thinking of them. Maybe they've lost a loved one or they're just having a tough time right now, and maybe their families, you know, they don't get to see their family or something like that. So I think it's quite heartfelt. So I'm stamping straight over with a black this time for the sentiment, and you'll notice I'm not doing this after my colouring, I'm doing it before my colouring. By using these kind of Versamark or any kind of permanent ink, even when I colour, that's not going to budge. That sentiment's not going to smudge anywhere and make a mess. So let's get on with the colouring technique, which is what you guys want to see. So we need some water-based pens, and we need some water and a little brush. I've got a size 4 brush here, but anything from say a size 2 to a 6 will do this. You know, he's quite a big stamp, there's not too much detail, so it's fine. So I've got a couple of browns, a red obviously for his lovely red chest, and I'm popping some colour just at the top and the bottom. When people colour with pens, the temptation is to colour your entire section of that image, and I'll show you by just adding some colour, pure colour to these areas, and then dragging it out with a very damp brush, not overloaded with water. And again, I'm not touching all of the colour, I'm just dragging out a little bit. You can always go back in and clean your brush a bit more if you want even a lighter shade, and that very, very quickly gives you some light and shade on that area without it being just a solid block colour. So that's my red done. So let's do his feathers. Again, 2 shades of brown, but exactly the same technique. Where I want pure colour, I'm just kind of popping it down where I might think he might be darker. So maybe here under his wing, it might cause a natural shadow. Not worrying about it too much. Under his belly, and it can be quite loose because we can get the water to move the colour as we want. And then some of a lighter brown. It's almost like a greeny brown, this one. It's quite earthy. But use whatever pens you've got in your stash, as long as they're water-based ones. These are the Kuretake Zigs because that's just what I've got at the moment, but by all means use what you've got in. And then again, we're going to pick up some water on the brush, and we're just going to go into the pure colour we've got and just slowly drag it out into those white areas. So it's not a case of going all over with your brush, just tiny, tiny little bits of water. Some of the colour I'm not touching at all. Don't worry if you go over the lines or leave some white areas. I think it really adds to the texture. And you'll start to see the water blend out that colour really nicely. The more you leave it, in fact, the more it starts to blend. Just going to add a little bit to that, the twig he's on. And to make it stand out from the brown of the robin, I'm using a grey and a green. Very, very similar technique. Just a tiny bit of colour, and then I'm going to go over with the brush. So if you want to try this technique, you might be watching live now, but if you had to watch it again on catch up or on YouTube later on, and you could even have it next to you on your tablet or your phone or your computer while you're trying to do this, and stop and pause if you like as you go back to it. So last thing you could do once this has dried off completely, you could go back in with, oh no, that's not my brown, with your brown. And if you wanted to add a little bit more detail, so it's quite loose now, but you could go back in and just do very, very light strokes to make it look really like individual feathers. Would look really nice. And you can build it up as much as you want then, or keep it as loose as you like. One thing I like to do with his eye as well, particularly if I'm stamping in grey like I've done here, is go over with a fine liner and really make that eye pop black again, just by adding that tiny bit of detail. Okay, to finish off that image, it kind of looks like he's floating in mid-air a little bit there, so I want to kind of give like a sky kind of background. So same kind of pens, anything water-based. This is quite a nice bright blue. Little splodge on the page, just in a particular area, and again just the damp brush, it's not soaking with water. That hair's back again, look. And exactly the same technique as for colouring the robin. I'm not touching all of it, I'm just letting it bleed out, and it's going to give, when we build it up, a kind of sky, cloudy kind of look. And I work my way around the image, doing the same kind of technique. Water to bits of the blue, not other bits. Add extra water if I really want no harsh lines around here where this sky kind of ends. And I'm not going right to the edge of the image, you'll notice. I could do, but I just don't want it, in case my robin is still a little bit wet, I don't want to go too close to him. The other thing about not going too close is it allows a bit of visual white space around your wording, around the robin itself, and it just makes him pop that little bit more. So all the way around, just one blue, but because you're adding the water, it looks like you're using loads of different shades. Turning him round so I'm not putting my hand over where's wet as I walk round, not walk round. What's really weird is that I tend to see robins in my garden more in the summer than the winter. I don't know if anybody else finds the same. Normally about July I tend to see a robin on my fence, but we always associate them with Christmas, don't we? And if you want to make this card or similar cards with me, I'm doing a card making class in my workshop. I think it's starting November, 2nd of November if I remember rightly. But do check out the events page on my social media, and you can book in for that if you want to learn how to do this and more Christmas cards. So I'm just going to blend a little bit more where those darker bits are, just to let the colour bleed. And I think that gives a really nice, as if he's sat on a crisp December morning on his little twig. Lovely. Let's pop him on a card. So, because I made this card quite clean and simple, I'm just going to pop on a card blank with some glue. However, on the back of the card, this is a stamp set that we've got called Made with Love, and it's a really, really nice way for you to personalise the fact that you have made these cards. So some of the stamps in here, you've got Handmade with Love, these little stamps, kind of like seal type stamp, and I'm going to pop on the back here, Handmade by, because isn't it nice when you're doing your cards at Christmas to tell people that you've made it? Or in fact, it maybe you're selling your cards on a Christmas craft stall this year, and you never know, if you pop your your name or your number even, or anything like that on here, you might get some orders for next year, you never know. But it's just a really, really lovely way to personalise your cards. So if I put, where did I put that fine liner? I'm going to put Handmade by Claire on there, or you can pop whatever you like. Let's mount our little Merry Robin on. Just a bit of tape. But you know me, I use tape sometimes, glue sometimes, foam pad sometimes, whatever I've either got to hand or depending on the look that I'm after. It's a really nice simple card that you could replicate again and again. So that's a great way to use the Merry Robin and try out some of your little techniques. So just to show you the two cards together. So I hope you enjoyed those two completely different cards and completely different techniques. Yeah, comment and tell me what you think, and I will see you next Thursday if I don't see you before at some of my workshops. But please don't go anywhere, there's a last little crafty video for you to watch.